Guys were amazing during this week on this mission trip. They had incredibly good attitudes, and to see their passion, especially towards those last few days, they began to realize that they're helping people with needs in Pendleton and Grant County. And then it's almost like a light bulb went off. They began to think, there are people in Berea who have very similar needs. There are people in Berea who need the same type of work done for their house. And so they started asking me questions. Can we do this? Can we do that? And as a youth minister, I'm thinking, sure, yeah, we can do all kinds of things. And that's kind of what we want to do. The camp pastor shared a little bit with us about servanthood that I wanted to share briefly with you. Story in the Bible where Jesus has his disciples the night before he was crucified. And he takes a basin of water. The Bible says he takes off his outer clothing. He bends down and begins to wash his disciples' feet. Of course, disciples' feet are pretty gross, especially back in those days when they just wore sandals around. And it was the job of a servant to wash the disciples' feet. Well, they didn't particularly like Jesus taking upon himself the very act of a servant, that type of humility. And so they were like, no, Jesus, don't wash our feet. And he says, unless I wash them, you'll have no part with me. And after he finishes this incredibly humbling servant act, the basin of water, he says, now that I've done this, you will be blessed if you do this also. Then you move forward in time a little bit to another story where Jesus is standing before Pilate and a mob of people. And Pilate decides that he is going to honor the festival that the Jews celebrate. He's going to release a prisoner. He's got a choice, either Barabbas or Jesus. He's thinking, obviously, Barabbas is such a worse criminal than Jesus could even imagine being. So the crowd is obviously going to release Jesus because he sees no guilt whatsoever in Jesus. So he says, who do you want? And the crowd chants out, we want Barabbas to be set free. Pilate doesn't understand this. He's like, what am I going to do with Jesus? And they shout, crucify him. And Pilate goes over to a basin of water, washes his hands, and says, I wash my hands of it. Let it be on your heads, this innocent man. So here we have Basin Theology 101. We have two different basins. One where Jesus humbly takes upon himself the act of a servant, that he is going to serve the needs of the people there, no matter what they are. Even do something as gross and nasty as washing their feet. And you have another basin that someone uses to wipe their hands of all responsibility, to wipe their hands of things that need to be done. I think with us, it's kind of like what Marley said in her message, that once you hear the truth, you have to respond. Once you've heard the gospel preached, you have to respond. And kind of I think what the youth are doing today is laying that basin in front of us. How are we going to respond? Are we going to get on our knees and take upon the act of a servant? Or do we wash our hands of the needs in our community? What we are planning on doing is meeting some of the needs in this community. As Alex said, we're not trying to change Berea. That's a large task. We want to change one life. One person that we could go and paint their house. We could build them a ramp. One simple thing. And then after that, change somebody else's life. And then maybe change somebody else's life. These guys have a passion for this that developed this summer. What we are asking is, how many of you have that same passion? Because we would like you to be a part of this if you have that passion. This is going to be our invitation this morning. In just a few minutes, the youth are kind of going to spread out, and they have a sheet of paper. And if you have a passion for this kind of ministry, maybe you would like to get your hands dirty and come out there and work with us. Or maybe you can't do that, but you could fix lunch to people who are working on a job site. Or maybe if we need some supplies, you could provide a little bit of financial consideration for that. If you have a passion for this ministry, we would love for you to be a part of it. If you have a passion for youth ministry, I would love for you to be a part of it. Come and talk to me if that's the case. But our invitation this morning, Yogi's going to come up and play, or maybe Zach is going to come up and play. One of them's going to come up and play. And while they're playing, what we'd like for you to do is take one of these sheets of paper, and if you have a passion for this, something you're interested in, just fill it out, write your name in it, write the things that you're interested in, and as you leave this morning, the teenagers are going to be standing throughout the room and standing in the back, and just hand them that paper. That's our invitation this morning. How will you respond to this call?